Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. Welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm talking to Ismael Dainehine, founder of GiveMatch, a match funding platform driven by energy of social media on which people can double their donations, thereby making the same impact at half the cost. In 2022 it raised over £10 million for charitable causes, and Ismael has great plans for its expansion into other countries, as you'll hear during the course of our conversation. In light of the cost of living crisis, it's becoming really important to make it easier for people to donate. Data from GiveMatch showed that charities lost out significantly this past Christmas, with 4 in 10 adults saying that they gave less than the year before. The good thing is this same data revealed that more than a third of people would rather spend money donating to a cause close to the heart than buying presents, with 10% of Brits saying they are happy to receive no gifts at all if charities could benefit. Interesting statistics. As well as an understanding of this, we get to understand Ismael's motivations behind founding GiveMatch. I also wanted to get his thoughts on the future of GiveMatch, what he's learned from his early mistakes, and his thoughts on his entrepreneurial responsibility. He also reveals how some significant early experiences define his path towards entrepreneurism, and talks with great depth about finding his true values, his introversion, and the effect it has had on his perspectives, and what it means to do well by doing good. Please do enjoy the conversation. Welcome, Ismael, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the podcast. I'm really keen to learn more about you, more about your leadership style, some of your entrepreneurial ventures to date, but predominantly you're on the podcast to talk about GiveMatch. So for our listeners, perhaps, Ismael, you could just give us a little bit of an insight into GiveMatch and what motivated you to start it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So GiveMatch, essentially, just to describe like the things that led up to GiveMatch, is essentially a frustration of the younger generation of donors in the modern age, in a very kind of hyper-social world, having to deal with very transactional, functional websites. So what we try to do with GiveMatch is essentially build it for the modern social world and build out a platform that makes giving social. So that's essentially what GiveMatch is. It's a platform that shows the donors the momentum that they can create by getting their friends to donate on a platform in a very visual way. And it also incentivizes donors to share their campaigns, and the incentive is in the form of a matched donation from their favorite brands or their favorite kind of celebrities.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So it is really using that power of social media for good, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. That's the idea.
Definitely. And what motivated you to start the business?
Where do I start? So then I previously was in the space of e-commerce as an entrepreneur, and before that I was in tech as well. So I had a few 2 or so failed tech startups. And then something possessed me to think that I can do something in care homes. That kind of failed, and then I went into e-commerce. And e-commerce is the thing that kind of took off for me. And for the first 2 years of building out that e-commerce brand, it was just tons of fun. I really enjoyed it. But then very quickly became bored and in true kind of millennial style, wanted to find something that inspires me and something that makes me, just lights up that fire in my belly. And so I started to borrow off some of my older experience in tech to think how can I use tech to build out things that I think could be kind of very meaningful in the world, and started to build out side projects while I was still building out this e-commerce platform. And then we built out something called My 10 Nights, and that is just a very small, well, I say small, but it's gone on to raise over 50, $60 million around the world now. But it was definitely small at the time. And so it raised about just over £100,000 in a period of 10 days. And we did that on the side. And I just remember very vividly, there was one user in that first very scrappy beta version of the site where the logo was outstretched and nothing about the website said that you should trust this to put your credit card details in, but people did. And there was one user who'd made 18 separate attempts to process a payment but failed to do so. Feel very bad for him. But it showed me that, wow, like this is a product that people really want. And we saw donations from over 80 different countries around the world. And this is all from a very kind of scrappy initiative by me and a couple of mates that put this website together. And then we said, well, like the power of like harnessing technology for the sake of good is just infinite, and we've never witnessed any kind of power momentum. It felt like catching a dragon by its tail at the time. And then so a few years went on, and then we built out My 10 Nights more and more, and it was a completely pro bono kind of work on the side. And my fascination for e-commerce just dwindled very, very fast, and I started to take more of an interest in this other thing. And so myself and a collection of kind of friends got together, and from the learnings that we had over My 10 Nights, over the years, building it from £100,000 to like $50, $60 million in America, Canada, Europe, Australia.
Wow.
We'd learned a lot about donor psychology, charity, and some of their kind of deepest pain points, and what was broken with the current model of giving online. And so there was a few problems that we felt that we could solve. And so we got together and said, okay, why don't we build out something at a much more substantial level outside of this kind of seasonal 10-day-a-year campaign. And yeah, that's what kind of put us onto GiveMatch. And being kind of very living in the kind of modern social world, we felt that we had to redesign giving from the ground up in a way that really made sense and put kind of the fun and the social component of giving back into its place, because giving is a very kind of social event offline, where you're kind of actively giving to somebody and you're seeing the impact, etc. Whereas online it can be quite faceless, and that takes away and kind of almost robs you of one of the biggest kind of upsides or benefits of giving. And so we're trying to kind of slowly restore that into the modern experience.
It's true, isn't it? I suppose, yeah, when you sort of, even if you respond to somebody that's sent through a kind of sponsorship request, then it's a very transactional experience, isn't it? There is no joy, there is no interaction, there is no kind of engagement. It's right, I'll put my credit card details in and sponsor. And, you get a message back from time to time and stuff like that to say thanks. But, yeah, it's very transactional, isn't it? So, yeah, I can see what you're setting out to do. I mean, by the sounds of it, you've got a fascinating story, Ismael. And, and you're on your LinkedIn profile, you talk very openly about those very early, in your younger days, those very early tech kind of apps that perhaps did fail, didn't go where you wanted them to, raised a bit of money for them. And where do they fit in your journey? What do you think you learned from those experiences?
Oh, God. I look back on those days. They were painful whilst I was kind of just wading through it. But I look back on them very, very fondly. And they've really kind of shaped the way that I view entrepreneurship, and allowed me, in hindsight now, to have a lot of fun being an entrepreneur because of the lessons I learned in those early days. So yeah, I made all the mistakes in the book, and coming from like a very kind of working class background in South London, I didn't have any predecessors who were able to kind of guide me through it, and so I made some of the mistakes that I think are embarrassing now, but at the time they seemed fairly kind of intuitive for me to do. But yeah, like I look back now, and I look at it as really as an advantage, where I had almost like a clean slate with entrepreneurship, and I could find my own path, could find my own mentors, and forge a version of entrepreneurship that really felt authentic to me,
Yeah.
and now kind of hopefully blossom into a form of entrepreneurship that I just thoroughly enjoy and find so much meaning from every day. But yeah, and having to go between different sectors of like tech and kind of care homes, which is a very kind of almost the complete opposite of tech. You're dealing with very old people in a very physical environments. That care home startup or business never saw the light of day, failed very quickly. No one would give us £2 million at that age, so then that didn't go very far. But then having to explore all those different kind of sectors allowed me to then decide on something that I felt could really aid or bring my vision of what I'd like the world to be and look like to fruition, rather than having that almost handed down to me in a way that, oh yeah, our family's in real estate, you're going to be in real estate, and that's all I know. It really gave me a chance to just like
find yourself, explore, find the thing that was going to work for you, and obviously then had some great success in raising funding and success in that e-commerce world, as you say, which congratulations and great on that. And I think when I read a little bit about you and we did that kind of research, I think you seem really now, and it comes across in that conversation, focused. You were really focused on, as we all were or are at times, focused on outward success and money, to now wanting to use that kind of entrepreneurism for good. And was it a light switch? I mean, you've sort of explained a bit of that story, but was it a light switch, or do you think it was just, actually, I am financially secure, and actually I want to go and do some good? I mean, can you remember the actual moment where you felt like there's a shift happening within you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wouldn't call it a light switch. It was almost like more like a dimmed light just going down.
just slightly being turned.
Yeah, to the point where kind of just darkness overwhelms you, and then you have to take action. But yeah, I mean, my journey was quite strange. I never kind of aspired to be an entrepreneur, or like from a young age felt that I need to be very kind of materially successful. I only realized the urgency of material success when I grew up, like past teenage years, and I realized for the first time how little we actually had in the grand scheme of things. Now, as an adult, and having understood the kind of the material resources that you actually need to make life work, and that shelter being kind of removed or unveiled, is when I realized, oh wow, I actually have to gain some material kind of wealth, and then the moment that I realized it is when there was a utility bill that was shared on our WhatsApp group, our sibling WhatsApp group, and I have like 6 siblings, there's 7 of us, and like together combined we were unable to cover it, and it was about 37 quid. And at that point I really felt like something is broken. I need to do something. And then I realized that getting a regular job probably isn't going to satisfy like kind of the kind of resources that I need to accumulate in order for like my parents to be okay and kind of help them out of kind of the environment and situation that they were in. And then I saw entrepreneurship as the only way outside of the system that could actually work, because for a number of reasons growing up, that the options available within the system didn't didn't inspire me or didn't encourage me very much. And so entrepreneurship seemed to be my last shot or my only shot. And that's kind of in my segue into entrepreneurship. But I realized for a lot of other people, like, entrepreneurship is very kind of glamorized, and they feel like, oh, it's very sexy and stuff.
It's not that at all, is it?
Yeah, it's not.
99.9% of the time.
Yeah,
It's not like that
for
at
sure.
all.
But that was my inroad to entrepreneurship. And then so for the first 2-3 years, the urgency was, I need to get kind of material wealth, and that's going to be the thing that sets everything right. And as soon as the material kind of resources did come, and we were able to cover that £37 bill a few times over, then at that point, it very kind of quickly dawned on me that life can't continue like this. And there's like, I almost felt like I had almost mastered the material world, and I felt like I felt very kind of underwhelmed by it. And then decided that there has to be more. And then, instead of venturing outwards into the outside world, I decided that I'm gonna try to venture to the inside world. And I guess that's the stage that I'm at, and just exploring.
Brilliant.
I kind of deeper connections, deeper meanings with people around me, family, friends, etc. And then kind of the work that I do now seem to be much more vivid or clear expressions of the values I hold quite close to me. And so that's kind of the shift of in perception and outlook that I've had.
Yeah. And it definitely sounds like that, even in this short conversation, and it's the first time we've spoken, and all of those kind of things, Ismail. I think, it feels like you're now doing something that replicates your true values.
Yeah.
And having created that security, it's given you that opportunity to probably find your true self again. Would that be true?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like every day, it's strange because it really depends on kind of your perception and how you approach kind of the world and life. And now I think like time has very much slowed down for me after I've jumped off kind of the hamster's wheel. And I feel like that things are a lot more deliberate and more measured now. And I feel like day to day, I'm able to do things that I'm more convinced are in line with the version of myself that I want to see at 80 years old, at 90 years old. And yeah, I feel like everything really is an expression of the values that you hold closest to you. And I just feel very fortunate now that I really have time and space and the mental headspace to sit down and craft that out in a way that I just don't feel just our culture as a whole affords people that kind of time and space as a privilege or a luxury to really assess and how you craft, your sense of self.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it does it? I think here, we live in a world that is very demanding, high pressurized, whatever you do in life, isn't it? And there's so many demands on all of us at all given times that, to have time to just stop, think, reflect, understand who you are, and I suppose a true sense of happiness at times is actually living your life to your values, isn't it? And not
Exactly
many people
that.
actually in this day and age get that chance and that opportunity.
For sure.
So we've talked about one of the myths of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, being that kind of it's all glam. But the other, I think one of the other myths is, you to succeed, you've got to be a very outgoing, extrovert kind of character. You've got to be out there. And again, reading stuff that you've put out there, Ismael, you're very much a self-confessed introvert.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'd ask the question then, obviously you've succeeded being an introvert, and I think there's many successful business owners, entrepreneurs that are, but what effects has being an introvert had on not only on your approach to entrepreneurship, but on your life as a whole, do you think, Ismael?
That's a good question. Um, I do think that one of the biggest benefits, I definitely at times wish I was more extroverted as well. And I feel, given it in certain situations, people probably would describe me as extroverted, but my default definitely is kind of an introvert, I think. But one of the biggest benefits of being an introvert is similar to what I was trying to describe earlier, that that you afford yourself the time and the space to kind of withdraw and look
Yeah.
at things in a much and then once you do withdraw, you then allow yourself the space and the time to look at things with more depth, and you can look at things at a much more kind of macro level. And I think in the business sphere, that's definitely how introversion, I think, has benefited me. But life as a whole, yeah, I feel like I just take more time to act or speak than the average person, perhaps, and I think that comes with advantages. I think if we all spoke a bit less and listened more, I think we'd probably get further. But yeah, I definitely do feel as a leader there are benefits to being able to leverage both of those
Mm.
kind of skills, like whether it's extroversion or introversion, in a way that suits the context.
And it's probably true, isn't it? All good leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs probably can demonstrate both sides of their personality. And like you say, there's times when you've got to be a little bit more gun ho, a bit more extroverted, a bit more kind of self promoting to put yourself out there and put the business out there. But there's times, and I think you've explained it really beautifully. Actually, is there's times when you've got to not act and
Yeah,
do think about your reaction and make a considered kind of response or considered action to an event
for
that's
sure.
taking place. So I think, yeah, probably success is probably the combination of the two, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and I feel like I mean, I think it largely depends on people's definition of introversion and extroversion. For me, it's an extrovert tends to gain energy or becomes re-energized by being around people, and an introvert just like gets that energy by being by themselves. And
Yeah.
I think when you are with yourself, I feel like the resources available to you of just headspace, reading books, literature, and actually like speaking to people a lot wider than you through the literature, will
Yeah.
probably get you a lot further than speaking to people who are a lot more interested in the here and now, rather than taking advantage of a much kind of wider
Definitely.
timeline of wisdom.
And where do you fit on the piece that, as business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs, we all have an obligation to our community? I mean, clearly, I think the answer to you're going to say is yes, they do. But, what do you think we should be doing more as sort of business owners or entrepreneurs in terms of in our communities?
Yeah, I feel like um, I definitely think not only businessmen and or women or entrepreneurs, um, not only they have an obligation to the community, but I think like everyone has an obligation to the community. Entrepreneurs just happen to use the vehicle of like commerce or enterprise to deliver
Mm.
or to see through that obligation to the community. But what I would personally like to see, uh, it's really strange because the I think everybody has primarily an obligation to themselves first, and then to the community. And I've seen that kind of firsthand work very well for me, where
Mm.
I've been able to satisfy someone like what I felt were the urgent kind of matters at hand. And once I was able to do that, then it allowed me to free up kind of a much deeper level of consciousness that made me think, okay, then now what are my obligations to those closest around me and my kind of local community, and then started to act upon that. And I feel that just anecdotally, I feel like that is a very healthy, wholesome, and
Mm.
realistic formula. If we get people to try to overcommit to the community or people at large, and ignoring kind of the needs of the self. I don't think it works. I mean, Naval, kind of a very kind of prominent thinker and tweeter as well. He comments how he wishes that everybody just became wealthy, because if we can teach everyone to become wealthy, or everybody becomes wealthy, then they'll realize that it's not that, and then their consciousness will be unlocked to then discover the things that actually can bring about meaning and value to themselves and to the community. And I feel that's the most pragmatic thing we can ask of people.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely that thing, isn't there? There's nothing, there's people that would say, and I would agree with this, there's nothing wrong with creating wealth and succeeding.
Yeah.
It's what you do with that wealth and
For
how
sure.
you behave when you've get to that point that's really important. And that's the true meaning of worth, isn't it? And, there'll be those that exploit that position and do harm in the world as a result of creating that wealth. But it's not the wealth creation itself, it's their behaviour. So actually we should all, I would agree with that, I'd concur with that, is the more people that can get out there, succeed and create wealth for themselves and make themselves secure, that's great. But it's what you do at that point. And, that's great. I suppose we go back towards GiveMatch and what you're doing now and those kind of things. So reversing back to that kind of story, where are you on that journey? Where are you on that kind of business's kind of path, really?
Yeah, so GiveMatch has had quite a good 2022. To date, we've raised about over £10 million of charitable donations, and the whole idea. Thank you. And the whole idea, behind GiveMatch, is that the underlying kind of philosophy that underpins GiveMatch is that when we come together to do good, we can enable a better world a lot faster, and that's what GiveMatch does. Essentially, it brings Warren together with his friends to donate in a way, to donate as a group rather than as an individual. And so that's really kind of the idea that we want to express in the world. And we've done that with up to the tune of £10 million last year. And 2023, we have our eyes set on America, Canada, and hopefully start to grow out over there, and also to scale out in terms of our corporate partnerships, and hopefully onboard kind of bigger name brands and corporations who have kind of very clear CSR goals that we can hopefully help them to achieve.
So Ismael, doing great things with GiveMatch, raising money for charities, but ultimately, GiveMatch is a commercial organisation generating its own profits. So where does that fit in the whole kind of business model, kind of what you want to do as an individual?
No, I think that's a fascinating question. I think it's a question that we as a culture need to be kind of a lot more kind of honest and direct about. I feel that we need more examples of people doing well by doing good, and once we demonstrate that that's perfectly possible and perfectly commendable, then I think we're gonna get much the pool of talent that the space attracts as a result of that is going to help us create a much better world faster. I'd personally like to see the wealthiest woman or man on the planet be the one who solves our climate crisis, or renewable energy, or healthcare. And I feel that the world should reward those people in that way, rather than like video games that promote things that most parents wouldn't like their kids to see. Put them on the front of Forbes magazine with $50 million dollars raised, etc. So I feel like we need to rethink and kind of push a reset button on how we think about profit and good. So it is a very sensitive topic, but I think it's time that we as a culture have a much more kind of honest and refreshed look at those things.
And it is a model, isn't it, that works in many ways. Having worked with, being a trustee of many charities, charities need to pay, and they do pay for either internal fundraisers or external fundraising support. And I suppose that's the model when
Yeah,
you're doing it in a modern way to leverage that social world. So it's just finding
yeah.
a new way of doing things, which is great. If we roll forward 3 years' time, where would you like to see GiveMatch?
It's a tricky one because we don't usually um, think that far ahead. To be honest, giving us more credit than we deserve. Most of the time, we're thinking about how we can survive for the next quarter, but but, um, but then we genuinely are very clear about what our mission is and what the version of the world that we'd like to see, which is we want to push the needle slightly on people's kind of comfortableness and keenness to come together to do good. And if we can kind of accelerate and promote and enrich that culture within kind of wider society every day, that's going to be a win. So if we push the needle 1% in the next quarter, and then we push it 10% in 3 years' time, that's always going to be our metrics. So we'll continue, whether it's in year 3, year 10, to keep promoting that.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. And one of the things that also always fascinates me about entrepreneurs is the other things in life they love to do. And anybody that, as a result of this podcast, goes to find you on LinkedIn will see that you make this comment, when I'm not on horseback, I build things that I think are cool. So where did the passion for horse riding come from, and how's it influenced your life, Ismael?
Oh, it's massively. I was actually out horse riding on my horse Locks earlier this morning. Yeah, my earliest memory of a horse is when I was about 8 years old. My hand in my mum's hand down Oxford Street, down central London, and seeing a policeman on a horse. And I was like, I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, Mum, I want one of those. And obviously, it was like many, many years later until I was able to actually take it up myself. But at that point, the fascination grew with horses. Then all my favorite films then became films with horses in it, and so it was typically like films like I don't know, like Robin Hood, Braveheart, etc.
Yeah.
Any of those classics. And then yeah, when I was able to like afford horse riding myself, then yeah, I took it up more seriously and went into like jumping, and then bought my own horse, and now I go to see Locks and ride maybe 2-3 times a week.
Brilliant, fantastic, amazing. And I suppose that's one of the things that gives you balance and that time just to do something. And it's like many things, isn't it? When you're riding a horse, you need a focus, and that's your sole thing. And I assume it's a reset for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like, especially as with tech entrepreneurs, we spend so much of our time with like immersed in the digital world. To have something just so in such contrast to that in the very kind of wild natural world, it's really invigorating.
Brilliant, fantastic. I always end with the same question, and that is, and again, I think during the course of this conversation, we talked about it a lot. But what's your personal definition of success, Ismael?
Wow.
It's a biggie to end with.
Yeah, it is. It is. I feel like that someone's idea of that constantly changes depending on where they are in life. But at the moment, my idea of success really is just feeling at peace when I'm doing nothing.
Feeling at peace when I'm doing nothing. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant. If people want to learn more about you, want to learn more about GiveMatch, where can they go?
They can go onto givematch.com, and when they get there, they'll see all the socials for GiveMatch. As for me, I guess podcasts like this until I do more like it.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for being a great guest. I've really enjoyed our conversation, Ismael.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks so much for it.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.